Echo, 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 echo. Frack it, frack it, frack it. Okay. Yeah, I'm trying to get set up. Yeah. Lovers from to debauchery. Debauchery! Drunken debauchery! Because it is fun for me. What? Think? What dinked? Oh, that dinked. Da, 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 yeah. Debauchery. Because it is fun for me. What dinked? Wait, did I? Which one did I just put? Okay, I posted on. Yeah, which one am I posting to? It's already that kind of night. Doop 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 boop. Wait, did I? Okay. It's already that kind of night. Doop 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 boop. What notification in the beginning? Thread on possible non-behavior. Nope. Pick your booty preference. What? Sorry, Cubs. I'm looking over stuff while trying to get stuff and such set up. Possible non-behavior. Getting stuff posted to the things and such. Sorry, Cubs. I'm looking over stuff and such set up. Ouch. We don't talk about Bruno, no. Shut the hell up about Bruno. Oh crap, I'm not invisible. Guess I should show up on screen, right? Ta-da! Whoop. Am I there? There I am. Cool. Okay. Still doing the background stuff. Background stuff. Oh, it's after 9. I guess I should say that I'm officially on. So. Okay, there we go. I'm officially on. Background stuff. Yeah. Anyone questioning about the night of debauchery? I was originally supposed to go to a drag show tonight. See some, friends acting, fun. But some of the people I was going to go out with were sick, so it kind of got canceled. So, well. But some of the people I was going to go out with were sick, so it kind of got canceled. So, well. Do 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 do. Get all these messages cleared before I start doing anything, because I don't want messages interrupting and whatnot. Okay, phone is silenced. Okay. I have almost finished the one I texted earlier. And we're going back to the complete first edition, original folk and fairy tales of the Brothers Grimm, translated and edited by Jack Sykes. Back to the complete first edition, original folk and fairy tales of the Brothers Grimm, translated and edited by Jack Sykes. I have actually added this to the schedule. This is first time I've actually put anything on the schedule, because, well, I have actually added this to the schedule. I kind of want to make it a thing. This is first time I've actually put anything. Okay, why am I getting deletes on the other computer? Because Discord is on the other computer. Why am I getting deletes? Delete. What the hell? Because Discord is on the other computer. Okay, I want. Oh no! What the hell? Is it gonna? Oh, cool. I've got Discord open on two different computers, and I'm muting it on one, and it's. Okay. Oh, cool. I've got Discord open on two different computers, and I'm muting it on one, and it's. Okay. Oh, Mito's going to bed. Guess I won't read her a bedtime story. Hello. Let's see if it works. Mito! Cool. Of course, she was playing Elden Ring. That's what she was playing around today. And, I'm going to be interviewed briefly Sunday on Sly's channel, because Sly's awesome. I'm going to be interviewed briefly. If you don't know Sly, well, this would be hers. And she was playing Dragon Age Inquisition. Because no one expects the Dragon Age Inquisition. Dragon Age Inquisition. Because no one expects the Dragon Age Inquisition. Okay, shit, where was I? Yeah, finishing stuff and such before reading. Okay, shit, where was I? Yeah, finishing. Badoop, what? What did I badoop? Don't I have that muted? Badoop, what? What did I badoop? Don't I have that muted? Let's do this. I'm echoing. Freaky. Output device. Put on there. What? Just messages. Okay. What? Just messages. Okay. I think that's got it, maybe. Sort of. Okay. I Got it, maybe. Do those people I follow on? Hello? Alpha Omega's doing Elden Ring, of course. Can't afford Elden Ring. Oh well. Alpha Omega's doing Elden Ring, of course. Okay, let's check to make sure sounds are working because reasons. Okay, sounds are working because reasons. Oh shit! What was with the delay on that? Like I hear the dink about it being played, then like a few seconds later, it's. Oh shit! What was with the delay on that? Okay, a jump scare works. Played, then like a few seconds later, it's.
I got a bad feeling about this.
Okay, a jump scare. Let's say notice 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
I got a bad feeling about this.
Why does it have such a delay? Is there a way to fix that? I mean, why does it have such a delay? If someone's gonna play something to get my attention, it'd be nice if it was like immediate or something. Okay, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So I'm gonna know if something's coming whether you do it or not. That's just cheating. Okay. So I'm gonna know if something's coming whether you do it or not. That's just cheating. Okay. What was I doing? Yeah, the alcohol must already be getting to me because I'm already forgetting what I was doing. Of course, it's a combination of the wine and Skittles. Skittles Dark Side. I like the flavors on that one. So okay. Skittles. Wine and Skittles. Skittles and wine. Okay. Um. I need transitions eventually. Okay. So I'm going to switch to the Storyteller screen. So what's this? Absolutely nothing there. Okay. Need to figure out the whole transition thing. What is the limo wipe? Absolutely nothing there. Okay. Try this again. Oh! Need to figure out the whole transition thing. Yep, okay, that's a wipe. What is the limo wipe? Fade. How long? 200 mil. Oh, damn. Okay, 600 millisecond fade. Let's see what that does. Oh, that was nicer. Okay. Oh, damn. Okay, 600 millisecond fade. Let's see what that does. We don't talk about transitions, no. We don't talk about. What am I doing? Okay. Okay. I love how people on another Discord server I'm on are just kind of. Yeah, they're all going to bed right now. Well, it's like they could come in and listen to me read bedtime stories or something, but. Yeah, they're all going to bed right now. Well, it's like they could come in and listen to me read bedtime stories or something, but. Okay. I mean, come on, people. A little effort wouldn't hurt. Okay. I mean, I'm purposely telling bedtime stories. I mean, come on, people. Come and listen to me until you fall asleep. That gives me viewer ratings, at least. I mean, I'm purposely telling bedtime stories. But no. Come and listen to me until you fall asleep. That gives me viewer ratings, at least. But no. Veto tweets. Tweety bean. Okay. Okay. Now. Okay. If I start challenging myself to drink an entire bottle of wine before each of the storytime streams, I'm gonna need people to donate to my coffee fund, honestly. I'm gonna need people to donate to my coffee fund, honestly. Honest. I'm not gonna lie. The bottle of wine I just finished was $20, but it supports a local winery. I'm not gonna lie. The bottle of wine I just finished that was $20, but it supports a local winery. I'd post. I'd post their link, but apparently their website's like expired. And it was the dragon fruit wine. If you look at my Twitter, so Twitter, it's Twitter. The dragon fruit wine. If you look at Twitter, Twitter, Tweety, Twitter. Twitter, it's Twitter. I'm gonna post a link to that. Twitter. Fuck. Okay. So the Twitter posts I reference the wine is follow that chain. So the Twitter posts I reference the wine is follow that chain. Oh, nope. Damn it. When I can eventually afford to I'll afford or have time to make my own stuff, I'll try to make things prettier. I would really like to make everything prettier, but honestly, make things prettier. I would really like to check my coffee. I need to program the bot to do this stuff. But I do have a coffee uh, site. Oh. But I do have a coffee site. Okay. It says I've got two people watching. Do I have two people watching? Or is it just me on two computers? I'm going to tell you no, I got computers. But it says I've got two people watching. Do I have two people watching? Or is it just me on two computers? I'm going to tell you no, I got computers. But a service stop, Capus 06, Wishrum, and sound alerts. Well, a service stop, Capus 06, Wishrum, and sound alerts. Well, if anyone ever comes in, feel free to do a sound alert to let me know that you're here. If anyone ever comes in, feel free to do a sound alert to let me know that you're here. Okay. Yeah, Oyster is on. Okay. Yeah, Oyster is on. Okay, I really need to get to the story, don't I? And I will, eventually. I promise, Cubs. uh, and I will, eventually. I promise. Cubs. I want to know what story I'm starting with, because I had to check the book when I was doing setup. And we are starting with Hansel and Gretel. Because I want to know what story I'm starting with. Hansel? And we are starting with Hansel and Gretel. Hansel. Hansel? Hansel? Hansel. Hey, Cat, what's up? Been a floof? Okay. Hey, Cat, what's up? Been a floof? It was definitely Skittles and wine night. Okay. It was definitely Skittles and wine night. Okay. 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 Fix this. Okay, updated that. I would say, hey, can everyone in the back hear me? But looks like, according to my little thingy that goes back and forth, I'm doing good. Okay. We don't talk about. I've got to get one's Kova's picture edited. Because I may have to do drunken karaoke nights too. Okay. The book is in my hand. Okay. The book is in my hand. Okay, Cubs, before I even start this, I want you to go get your water, go to the bathroom, brush your teeth, wash your hands, not in that order, Crawl into bed. Brush your teeth. Wash your hands. Turn down the light. In that order. Crawl into bed. Because if I'm not out watching strippers, I'm going to read you a bedtime story. Because if I'm not out watching strippers, I'm going to read you a bedtime story. And honestly, it was going to be a cabaret show. It was going to be awesome. I knew at least two of the people in it. And it wasn't only women, but it was also a couple of guys in drag, which would have been kind of cool to watch. But since that's not happening for me, I'm here reading you bedtime stories. But since that's not happening for me, I'm here reading you bedtime stories. And because your parents are out having a fucking blast, they called me over to take care of you little rugrats. And because your parents are out having a fucking blast, they called me over to take care of you little rugrats. Why is that not? Okay, there it is. About to go questionable this. Fuck, I can't remember what I was gonna say. Okay, yeah. About to go questionable this. Fuck, I can't remember what I was gonna say. Okay. Son still Bruno. Kids, get tucked in. Try to fall asleep. Relax. It'll be okay. Sure, there's a war going on the other side of the world, but you are here, safe and sound, with your uncle. I won't let anything bad happen to you. In fact, I'm eating your Skittles, so you don't have to worry about cavities, okay? Don't give me that look. You had plenty of sugar earlier. Besides, you just brush your teeth. You don't need Skittles. I need the sugar, otherwise I won't be able to stay awake to tell you these stories. Besides, you just brush your teeth. You don't need Skittles. I need the sugar, otherwise I won't be able to stay awake to tell you these stories. Man, I love these blood orange ones. Okay. Man, I love these blood orange ones. Okay. Are you tucked in? Yeah, make me get the duct tape out. Are you tucked in? Yeah, make me get the duct tape out. I don't know why OBS isn't showing me the movie. Okay, there it is. Yeah. I don't know, fourth wall break within a fourth wall break. Who do you think I am, Deadpool? That's like 16 walls. Okay. That's like 16 walls. Okay. Ah, Skittles. Okay. So I'm not getting any more messages while I'm here. Okay. Okay. Are you kids ready for bed? Are you ready for your story, kids? I mean, I'm here to tell you your story. tucked in, comfy, cozy, sleepy. No, that is not why I gave you cough medicine. You had a cough. Okay. So I'm going to read you Hansel and Gretel. And probably a few other stories. It depends on if you fall asleep or not. So, why does this have got two people? Hansel and Gretel. A poor woodcutter lived on the edge of a large forest. He didn't have a bite to eat and barely provided the daily bread for his wife and two children, Hansel and Gretel. It reached a point when he couldn't even provide that anymore. Indeed, he didn't know how to solve this predicament. One night, while he was tossing and turning in bed because his worries, his wife said to him, "Listen to me, husband. Early tomorrow morning, you're to take both children and give them a piece of bread. Then lead them into the middle of the forest where it's most dense. After you build a fire for them, go away and leave them there. We can no longer feed them." What a bitch. Remember, kids, it was a mother's idea. Not even a stepmother, real mother. "No, wife," the man said. "I don't have the heart to take my own children and abandon them to wild beasts, for they'd soon come and tear them apart in the forest." "If you don't do that," his wife responded, "we shall have to starve to death." She didn't give him any peace until he said yes. Belligerent woman. Oh, hell, we could always make more kids, I guess. Damn. The two children were still awake because of their hunger, and they had heard everything that their mother said to their father. Gretel thought, "Now it's all over for me," and began to wipe pitiful tears. But Hansel spoke. "Be quiet, Gretel. Don't get upset. I'll find a way to help us." Upon saying this, he got up and put on his little jacket, opened the bottom of the door, and crept outside. The moon was shining very brightly, and the white pebbles glittered from the house like pure silver coins. Hansel stooped low to the ground and stuffed his pocket with as many pebbles as he could fit in, and then he went back into the home. "Don't worry, Gretel. Just sleep quietly," as he lay down against his bed and fell asleep. Early in the morning, before the sun had even begun to rise, the mother came and woke the two children. "Get up, children, we're going into the forest. Here's a piece of bread for each of you, but be smart and don't eat it until noon." "Get up, children, we're going into the forest. Here's a piece of bread for each of you, but be smart and don't eat it until noon." Are these fairy tales like severely anti-woman? I mean, honestly. Okay. Gretel put the bread under her apron because Hansel had the pebbles in his pocket. Then they set out together into the forest. And after they had walked for a while, Hansel stopped still and looked back at the house. He did this time until his father said, "Hansel, what are you looking at? And why are you dawdling? Pay attention and march along." "Okay, father," said Hansel. "I'm looking at the tiny white cat that's sitting on the roof and want to say goodbye to it." "Okay, father," said Hansel. The fool, that's not a cat, that's the morning sun shining on the chimney. Because cats look at chimneys. But Hansel had not been looking at the cat. Instead, he had been looking at the shiny pebbles from his pocket that he had been dropping on the ground. When they reached the middle of the forest, the father said, "Children, I want you to gather some wood. I'm going to make a fire so you won't get cold." Because dads care. Hansel and Gretel gathered together some brushwood and built quite a nice little pile. The brushwood was soon kindled and when the fire was ablaze, the mother said, "Now, children, lie down by the fire and sleep. We're going into the forest to chop wood. When we're finished, we'll come back and get you." Yeah, I don't know the mother went with it, but okay. Hansel and Gretel sat by the fire, and when noon came, they kept eating their pieces of bread until evening. But their mother and father did not return. Nobody came to fetch them. When it became pitch dark, Gretel began to weep, but Hansel said, "Just wait until the moon has risen." And when the full moon had risen, Hansel took Gretel by the hand. The pebbles glittered like newly minted silver coins, and showed them the way. They walked the whole night long and arrived back at their father's house at the break of day. Their father rejoiced with all his heart that when he saw his children again, for he had not liked the idea of abandoning them alone in the forest. Their mother seemed delighted as well at their return, but secretly she was angry. Not long after this, there was once again nothing to eat in the house. And one evening Gretel heard her mother say to their father, "The children found their way back one time, and I just let it go. But there's nothing left in the house except for half a loaf of bread. Tomorrow you must take them further into the forest so they won't find their way back home. Otherwise, there's no hope for us." I gotta admit, this is probably the reason why, female animals eat their kids in the wild. I'm not saying that, your mom would eat you, but if it came down to things, I would suggest you kids find a place to hide in the forest too. Just saying. All of this saddened their father, and he thought it'd be much better to share your last bite to eat with your children. But since he had given in the first time, he also had to yield the second. What a bottom. Oh, excuse me. Hansel and Gretel overheard their parents' conversation, and Hansel got up and intended to gather pebbles once again. But their parents had locked the door. Nevertheless, he comforted Gretel and said, "Just sleep, dear Gretel. The dear Lord will certainly help us." Right. Early the next morning, they received little pieces of bread, but they were smaller than the last time. On the way into the forest, Hansel crumbled the bread in his pocket, stopped as often as he could to throw the crumbs on the ground. "Hansel, why are you always stopping and looking around?" asked his father. "Keep going." "Oh, I'm looking at my little pigeon that's sitting on the roof and wants to say goodbye to me," Hansel answered. Hansel has a lot of animals he talks to, apparently. "You fool," his mother said. "That's not your little pigeon. It's the morning sun shining on the chimney." What a bitch. Now their mother led the children even deeper into the forest, and until they came to a spot they had never seen before in their lives. Once again they were to sleep by the large fire, and their parents would to come and fetch them in the evening. Yeah. Once again, they were to sleep by the large fire, and their parents when noon came, Gretel shared her bread with Hansel because he had scattered his along the way. The noon went by and the evening passed, but no one came for the poor children. Hansel comforted Gretel and said, "Just wait until the moon has risen, Gretel. Then I'll see the little breadcrumbs that I scattered, and they'll show us the way back home." When the moon rose, Hansel looked for the breadcrumbs. They were gone because many thousands of birds that fly about the forest had found them and gobbled them up. That's what birds do. Nevertheless, Hansel believed he could find their way home and pulled Gretel along with him. But they soon lost their way in the great wilderness. Kids leave better trails than crumbs. Your noses, that's what you were giving them. Kids leave better trails than crumbs. Your noses, that's what you were giving them. They walked the entire night, and all the next day as well, from morning till night, until they fell asleep from exhaustion. Then they walked for one more day, but they didn't find their way out of the forest. They were now very hungry, and had nothing along to eat except some berries they'd found growing on the ground. Berries that grow on the ground, they grow on plants. Figure it out, cubs. On the third day, they continued walking until noon. Then they came to a little house made of bread, with cake for a roof and pure sugar for windows. Sounds tasty. Or if it's Skittles. Probably Skittles. "Let's sit down and eat until we're full," said Hansel. "I want to eat a piece of the roof. Gretel, you can have part of the window since it's sweet." Oh, how nice. Hansel had already eaten a good piece of the roof, and Gretel had devoured a couple of small round windows. It was about to break off a new one when they heard a shrill voice cry from inside. "Nibble, nibble, I hear a louse. Who's that nibbling on my house?" Oh god, that was annoying. "I hear a louse. Who's that nibbling on my house?" Oh god, that was annoying. So much echo with that. Hansel and Gretel were so tremendously frightened that they dropped what they had in their hands, and immediately thereafter a small what? Hansel and Gretel were so tremendously frightened that they dropped what they had in their hands, and immediately thereafter a small what? Try that again. Hansel and Gretel were so tremendously frightened that they dropped what they had in their hands, and immediately thereafter a small and ancient woman crept out of the door. She shook her head and said, "Well now, dear children, where have you come from? Come inside with me and you'll have a good time." Stranger danger! Stranger danger! Come inside with me and you'll have a good time. Stranger danger! Stranger danger! Mm. I choked on my Skittle. She took them both by the hand and led them into her little house. There she served them a good meal of milk and pancakes with sugar and apples and nuts. These nuts. There she served them a good meal of breakfast pancakes with sugar, apples, and nuts. Tasty. Afterwards, she made up two beautiful beds, and when Hansel and Gretel lay down in them, they thought they were in heaven. This should soon will be. Afterwards, she made up two beautiful beds, and when Hansel and Gretel lay down in them, they thought they were in heaven. This should soon will be. The old woman, however, was really a wicked witch on the lookout for children, and had built her house made of bread only to lure them to her. As soon as she had any children in her power, she would kill, cook, and eat them. Tasty. It would be a feast for days. Therefore, she was quite happy that Hansel and Gretel had come her way. It would be a feast for days. Therefore, she was quite happy that Hansel and Gretel had come her way. Honestly, Cubs, decent sized kid might make a week's worth of food depending on how you cook them. I should not have said that. I should not have said that. A week's worth of food depending on how you cook them. I should not have said that. I should not have said that. Anyway, where was I? Early the next morning, before the children were awake, she got up and looked at the two of them sleeping so sweetly, and she was delighted and thought, "There will certainly be a tasty meal for you." She got up and looked at the two of them sleeping so sweetly. Then she grabbed Hansel and stuck him in a small coop. And when he woke up, he was behind a wire mesh used to lock up chickens. Then she grabbed Hansel and stuck him in a small coop. And when he woke up, he was behind a wire mesh used to lock up chickens. Because, chicken coop, that kind of thing. I should not explain this to you, Cubs, but you're so frickin' civilized. Chicken coop, that kind of thing. I should not explain this to you, Cubs, but you're so frickin' civilized. Did you know your mom and I had chickens when we were younger? Oh, I had chickens for a long time, but your mom just recently had chickens. Well, I won't get into that. Roosters are pricks. The same. I won't get into that. Roosters are pricks. The same. Immediately after, she shook Gretel and yelled, "Get up, you lazy bones! Fetch some water and then go into the kitchen and cook something nice. Your brother's sitting in a chicken coop and I want to fatten him up. And when he's fat enough, I'm going to eat him. But now, I want you to feed him." Because clearly she has this thing about free range children. Gretel was frightened, no, duh, and wept. She had to do what the witch demanded. So she was very. So the very best food was cooked for her, poor Hansel, so that he would become fat. So the very best food was cooked for her, poor Hansel, so that he would become fat. Okay. This witch has stuff to cook in the forest. This witch. So she has obviously lots of food, but she wants to eat kids. So she has obviously lots of food, She has food to feed kids to fatten them up. She has food to feed kids to fatten them up. So if you force feed your brother food, is it foie gras? Oh God. So if you force feed your brother food, is it foie gras? Oh God. Okay. Where was where was I? Uh, well, Gretel got nothing but crab shells. Where do you get crab in the middle of the forest that you're able to force feed some brat crab and feed his sister shells? Where do you get crab in the middle of the forest that you're able to force feed some brat crab? And this is the Black Forest we're talking about here. It's currently no, I guess under this is the Black dispute. Forest we're talking about here. It's currently. How is the witch getting access to seafood to feed her meals? How is the witch getting access to seafood to feed her meals? Anyway, every day the old woman came out and called, Hansel, stick out your finger so I can feel whether or not you're fat. Anyway, every day the old woman came out and called, Hansel, stick out your finger so I can feel whether or not you're fat. How'd you able to tell by a finger? Man, I'm huge and my fingers aren't. What the fuck? Oh well. However, Hansel stuck out a little bone, and the witch was continuously puzzled why Hansel hadn't gotten any fatter. However, Hansel stuck out a little bone, and the witch was continuously puzzled why Hansel hadn't gotten any fatter. Not that kind of bone, Cubs. Stop snickering. Not that kind of bone, Cubs. Stop snickering. Damn it, Cubs, stop. It's not that kind of bone. Damn it, Cubs, stop. It's not that kind of bone. One evening, after a month had passed, she said to Gretel, Get a move on and fetch some water. I don't care whether your brother is fat enough or not. He's going to be slaughtered and boiled tomorrow. Get a move on and fetch some water. In the meantime, I'm going to prepare enough dough so that we can also bake. In the meantime, I'm going to prepare enough dough so that we can also bake. Okay, so Gretel's been wearing herself thin, cooking all this food for her brother. Her brother should be getting fatter. And the witch wants pastries. Brother should be getting fatter. And the witch wants pastries. Still eating Skittle, sorry. Skittle munching, ASMR. Haha. Aye. Get out the immersion break. Skittle munching, ASMR. Haha. Aye. So Gretel went off with a sad heart and fetched the water in which Hansel would be boiled. Early the next morning, Gretel had to get up, light the fire, and hang the kettle full of water. Make sure that it boils, said the witch. I'm going to light the fire in the oven and shove the bread inside. Make sure that it boils, said the witch. I'm going to light the fire in the oven and shove the bread inside. Because you should clearly have bread with young boy. Gretel was standing in the kitchen and wept bloody tears and thought, oh, bloody tears. It would have been better if the wild animals in the forest had eaten us. Then we would have died together and wouldn't have had to bear this sorrow. And I wouldn't have to boil the water that will be the death of my dear brother. Oh, dear God, help us poor children get out of this predicament. And I wouldn't have to boil the water that will be the death of my dear brother. Oh, dear God, help us poor children get out of this predicament. Dear God. Um, so the deer god's the god of the hunt. I don't know what you're talking about. I mean, pump up his price so he wouldn't have anything to do with it. You're not being hunted. No. Then the old woman called, Gretel, come away. Come right away over here and light the oven. What? When Gretel came, she said, Look inside and see if the bread is ready, nice and brown and well done. My eyes are weak, and I can no longer see well from a distance. And if you can't see, then sit down on the board and I'll shove you inside. Ooh, kinky. Then you can get around inside and check everything. The witch wanted to shut the oven door once Gretel was inside, for she wanted to bake her in the hot oven and eat her too. For loafing around. Honestly, that's just not efficient. If you're going to boil the boy and eat him, and bake the girl, how are you going to keep them fresh for so long? Honestly, make jerky and make it a whole lot easier. And then you can season it and boil it and anything you want. I should not have said that. I should not have said that. Please do not contact Child Protective Services on my knowledge of cooking children. And try to sleep, young ones. I'm just reading a story. I know nothing about cooking the small children. I would hate for you to have horrible nightmares of your uncle eating you. I only get that hungry when I'm drunk. Munchies, you know. This is what the wicked witch had planned and why she called the girl. But God inspired Gretel. Of course he does. And she said, I don't know how to do it. First you show it to me. Sit down on the board and I'll shove you inside. So the old woman sat down on the board, and since she was light, Gretel shoved her inside as far as she could, and then quickly shut the oven door and bolted it with an iron bar. The old woman began to scream and groan in the hot oven, but Gretel ran off, and the witch was miserably burned to death. Meanwhile, Gretel went straight to Hansel and opened the door to the coop. After Hansel jumped out, they kissed each other and were glad. Kinky. The entire house was full of jewels and pearls, so they filled their pockets with them. Then they went off and found their way home. Their father rejoiced when he saw them again. He hadn't spent a single happy day since the children had been gone away. Now he was a rich man. However, the mother had died. The hell. I guess after the mother died, the father didn't even think about going out in the forest finding his kids. I guess after the mother died, the father didn't even think about going out in the forest finding his kids. Hmm. Someone on the server thought I was going to bed. Someone on the server thought I was going to bed. Yeah, well, I guess people don't really. I was saying goodnight to other people and said that they were going to miss me reading bedtime stories. Yeah, well, I guess people don't really. I was saying goodnight to other people and said that they were going to miss me. Da 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 da. So long, my time's come. Da 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 da. Okay. Well, it took me over an hour to read that one story. Well, didn't really take an hour to read that story. I didn't exactly start it at 9 o'clock. Oh God. Excuse me. Oh God. Excuse me. Fuck. Wine and Skittles. Wine and Skittles. None the more though. Okay. So that was Hansel and Gretel. None the more though. So that was Hansel and Gretel. Your kids aren't even tired yet, are you? Your kids aren't even tired yet, are you? Okay. I guess I can read another story. Okay. I guess I can read another story. Hmm. Next one is Herr Fix-It-Up. Because Germany. Next one is Herr Fix-It-Up. Because Germany. No, I'm not going to try an accent. At least I'm going to try to not try an accent. No, I'm not going to try an accent. Sosa's got 2 viewers. Who's here? A service stop, Capix 06, and Lestrom. Well, if you're still here, thanks for hanging out. And if you really want to get my attention, just play one of sound alerts. They're free. That way I'll know you're here. 'Cause I'm staring at a book for most of this, so yeah. Sound alerts. Let me know. It's cool. I'm staring at a book for most of this, so yeah. Secret tunnel. Let me know. It's cool. Yeah, fix it up. Fix-It-Up had been a soldier for a long time. When the war came to an end, however, there was nothing for him but some old things to do every day. He resigned from the army and decided to become a servant of the great lord. There would be clothes trimmed with gold, a lot to do, and always new things happening. So he set out on his way and became a foreign court, where he saw a lord walking, talking, where he saw a lord taking a walk on the garden. Fix-It-Up did not hesitate. He moved briskly over to the lord and said, "Sir, I am looking for the employment with the great lord. If your majesty is himself such a person, it would give me great pleasure to serve you." Why am I doing a French accent when this is supposed to be German? I do not know. Because I do not speak the German. There's nothing I don't know and can't do. I know just how to carry out orders, no matter how they are given. "Fine, my son," the Lord said. "I'd be pleased to have you. First, tell me, what do I desire right now?" Without answering, Fix-It-Up spun around and rushed away, and returned with the pipe and tobacco. "Fine, my son, you're hired as my servant. But now I'm going to command you to get Princess Nomini, the most beautiful maiden in the world. I want to have her for my wife." Nomini? Nomini? Nominamina. "All right," said Fix-It-Up. "That's a trifle for me. Your Majesty will soon have her. Just give me a coach drawn by 6 horses, a coachman, guards, couriers, servants, and the geek, and in full dress. I myself must be princely garments, and everyone must obey my command." Soon they departed. Fix-It-Up, the servant, sat inside the coach, which headed straight away to the beautiful princess's court. When the road came to an end, he drove into a field, and soon reached the edge of the large forest, filled with thousands of birds. A boistering song soared splendidly into the blue air. "Stop! Stop!" exclaimed Fix-It-Up. "Don't disturb the birds. They are praising their creator and will serve me some other time. Let's go to the left." What? So the coachman had to turn and drive around the forest. Soon after, they came to a large field, where close to 1,000,000,000 ravens were sitting and crying shrilly for food. Ravens crying shrilly for food? "Stop! Stop!" exclaimed Fix-It-Up. "Untie one of their horses way up front, lead it to the field and slaughter it so that the ravens can eat. I don't want them to suffer from hunger." How nice of him. After the ravens had eaten, the journey continued, and they came to a pond with fish that were moaning and groaning. "For God's sake, I have nothing to eat in this terrible swamp. Throw me into a running river, and I will repay your deed one day." Before the fish could even finish speaking, Fix-It-Up had exclaimed, "Stop! Stop! Quick! Put the fish on dry apron! Coachman, drive it to the running river!" Why am I going to a French accent again? I do not listen to enough German people. German. Fix-It-Up himself got out and threw the fish in the water. When the fish flapped its tail in joy. "Now get the horses going," said Fix-It-Up. "We must arrive at their designated spot by evening." When he reached the royal residence, he drove straight into the best inn, where the innkeeper and all his people came out and welcomed him with their best manners, thinking that a foreign king had arrived, although it was only a servant. Fix-It-Up had himself announced at the royal court, where he endeavored to make a good impression and court the princess. "My son," said the king, "many such suitors have already been turned away because they couldn't perform the tasks I'd assigned them to win my daughter." "All right," said Fix-It-Up. "Set any kind of hard task that you want me to do." "I ordered a quarter of my liter of poppy seeds." Ordered the. Can't do this in accent. I'm sorry. I can't even get the right accent down. Skittle break. Okay. "I've ordered a quarter of a liter of poppy seeds to be sown into a field. If you can gather them so that not one kernel is missing, you shall have the princess for your wife." "Ho ho!" Fix-It-Up thought. "That is not much for me." Then he took a measuring cup, a sack, and snow-white sheets, went out into the field and spread the sheets in the field where the seeds had been sown. Soon after, those birds whose singing he had left undisturbed in the forest arrived, and they picked up the seeds, kernel after kernel, and carried them to the white sheets. When the birds had picked up all of them, Fix-It-Up poured them into a sack, took the measuring cup under his arm, and went to the king and measured out the poppy seeds for him. Now he thought that the princess was already his, but he was wrong. How many poppy seeds are in a quarter of a liter? That's a, sounds like a Google question there. Because he took a measuring cup. Hmm. "One more thing. Well, one thing more, my son," said the king. "My daughter has recently lost her golden ring. You must return it to me before you can have her." Fix-It-Up did not get upset. "Let your majesty show me the river and bridge where the ring was lost." How do you know it's a river and bridge? It doesn't say anything about it. "And I shall soon return it to you." When Fix-It-Up was brought there, he looked down, and there he saw the fish that had swum into the river. It stuck its head into the air and said, "Wait a moment, I'll dive below. A whale has the ring under his fin. I'll fetch it." "What the hell is a whale doing in the river?" This is This is Germany. There are no whales in the river. I think. I don't know. Never been to Germany. This is Germany. There are no whales in the river. No whales in the river. Okay. Indeed, the fish soon fetched and tossed the ring onto the shore. Fix-It-Up brought it to the king, and the latter replied, "Now, just one more thing. There's a unicorn in the forest, and it's been causing a great deal of damage." Because unicorns do that. Horny beasts. If you can kill it, there's nothing more you'll have to do. Dude wants Fix-It-Up to kill a unicorn. What the hell? If you can kill it, there's nothing more you'll have to do. Rhino I can see, but unicorn? What the hell? Rhino I can see, but unicorn? Fix-It-Up did not get very upset here either. Instead, he went straight into the forest where he came upon the ravens he had once fed. Instead, he went straight into the forest where he came upon the ravens he had once fed. Just have a little more patience, they said. The unicorn is lying down sleeping, but it's not on the side where you can see its eye. What? The unicorn is lying down sleeping, but it's not on the side. When it turns over, we'll peck out its a good eye. Then it'll be blind and run furiously against trees and get stuck with its horn. Oh, yeah. Blind unicorn ramming a tree. I wouldn't think about that. Oh, yeah. Blind unicorn ramming a tree. I wouldn't think about that. Random thought. See, like Haley, Lenare, Nystrom, Little Girl. More people really showing up on the list. Feel free to do a sound alert. They're free and lets me know you're here. Just so I can acknowledge that you're here. Feel free to do a sound alert. If you're here. When you're here. Lets me know you're here. Just so I can acknowledge that you're here. If you're here. When you're here. Soon the beast tossed itself around a few times and lay on its other side. All at once the raven swooped down and picked out its good eye. When it felt the pain, it jumped up and ran wildly around the forest. After it got its horn stuck in a thick oak tree. Fix-It-Up jumped out and cut off its head. That's what you do to unicorns. And brought it to the king, who could no longer deny him his daughter. She was delivered to Fix-It-Up, who took a seat next to her in the coach. She was in full dress, just as he had come, and immediately drove off and brought the lovely princess to his lord. Fix-It-Up was given a fine reception, and the lord's wedding with the princess was celebrated in great splendor. Then Fix-It-Up was appointed prime minister. Everyone in the company to whom this tale was told wished to be at the celebration. One person wanted to be a chambermaid, the other a wardrobe attendant. Someone wanted to be the chamber servants, another a cook, and so on. What? Someone wanted to be the chamber servants. What? Yo, kids, you want to be a chambermaid? Not until you're older. And by older, I mean an adult. Because cubs should not be chambermaids, because reasons. Oh. What's it with the after stories of these things giving such weird freaking notions? Because that entire last thing could have been completely ignored. It's like, okay, when, Fix It Up told everyone about what he had done, they just want to work for him. Because as he becomes prime minister, Fix It Up told everyone about what he had done, they just want to work for him. As he becomes prime minister, dude, admittedly, Fix It Up gets shit done, but dude, he didn't have to give the princess to the Lord. I mean, he could have kept her. He did all the work. Well, he didn't really do any work at all. He did everyone that helped do it. I guess that's a decent job for prime minister. I guess that's a decent job for prime minister. I don't know about you, Cubs, but I don't think I can sleep after that story either. That's just freaking weird. I don't know about you, Cubs, but and the Skittles aren't exactly helping any. And the Skittles aren't exactly helping any. So I guess I'll have to read you another story. At least one. Next one is The White Snake. Next one is The White Snake. Which could be misconstrued into so many different things. Okay. Are you comfy, Cubs? I mean, I can't read stories all night, although I guess I probably could, because I'm not doing anything else. I mean, I can't read the stories all night, although I guess I probably could, because... Well, I can read the stories until I fall asleep if you guys aren't going to. I'm not doing anything else. Well, I can read the stories until I fall asleep if you guys aren't going to. Anyway, the white snake. Let's take a cough drop because Skittles are helping. Okay. Every day at noon, a covered dish was placed on the king's table. Then, after everyone left, the king would eat alone from the dish, and nobody in the entire realm knew what kind of food it was. I'm gonna go on a limb and say it's white snake, but one of the servants became curious and wanted to know what the dish contained. On one occasion, after the king had ordered him to take the dish away, he could no longer restrain himself. So he took the dish to his room and uncovered it. As he lifted the cover, he found a white snake lying inside. And once he laid his eyes upon it, he felt a great desire to taste some of it. Because everyone wants to taste the white snake. So he cut a piece off and began eating it. No sooner did his tongue taste the flesh of the snake that he understood the language of animals and heard what the birds in the window were saying to each other. Eat white snake, hear animals. Cool. On this very same day, the queen lost one of her beautiful rings, and the suspicion fell upon him. The king also said that if he was not able to find the thief by morning, he himself would be punished if he had been the guilty person. The servant became sad and went down into the courtyard, where some ducks were resting in the water. As he was watching them, he heard one of them say, "There's something heavy in my stomach. I ate the ring that the queen has lost." Duck. The servants took the duck and carried it to the cook. "Kill this one. It's fat enough." Wow. So the cook took off the duck's neck and then began cleaning it. The queen's ring was found lying in the stomach. The servant brought it to the king, who was astonished and happy. Since he was sorry that he had treated the servant unjustly, he said, "Demand whatever you like, and whatever royal position you would honor. Position of royal honor you would like." Oh, God. However, the servant declined every offer, even though he was young and handsome. What does young and handsome have to do with denying honors? His heart was sad, and didn't want to remain at the court any longer. He asked only for a horse and enough money to travel the world and see the world. When he was provided with everything in the very best way, the next morning he rode off and came to a pond where 3 fish were trapped in the reeds and were wailing that they'd have to die if they couldn't get back into the water. So he dismounted and took them out of the reeds and put them back into the water. Then the fish cried out, "We'll remember you, and one day we'll repay you." Cool. Fish alarms. He rode on, and a while later he heard an ant king crying out, "Get away from us! Your enormous beast is trampling us with his huge hooves." "Get away from us! Your enormous beast is trampling us with his huge hooves." Ants have kings? Huh. The young man looked down to the ground and he saw that his horse had stepped on an ant hill. So he turned his horse away, and the ant king called out, "We'll remember you. One day we'll repay you." Fuck ants, man. I hate ants. Soon the servant entered a forest where 2 ravens were throwing their young ones out of their nests. They said that their tiny ones were now big enough and could feed themselves. Because that's what ravens do. The young birds lay on the ground and screamed that they would die of starvation because their wings were still too small, and they couldn't fly yet in search for food. So the young man dismounted, killed his horse with a sword, and threw the horse to the young ravens. They hopped over the horse and ate their fill and said, "We'll remember this, and one day we'll repay you." You turn all these other animals, and what the hell is this horse saying? It's like, dude, you're gonna kill me to feed these things? Shit. The young man moved on and came to a large city, where he heard a proclamation that whomever wanted to marry the king's daughter would have to perform a task given by her, and if he didn't complete it successfully, he would forfeit his life. And if he didn't complete it successfully, he would forfeit his life. That's a princess who doesn't really want to get married. Like, look, if you can do all this stuff, I'll marry you. But if you can't, fuck you, you're decapitated. Oh, like, look, if you can do all this stuff, I'll marry you. But if you can't, fuck you, you're decapitated. Really, fairy tales seem to be severely against women. Yeah, they're typically the ones who they're supposed to be about. Fairy tales seem to be against women. What was I? Okay. Many princes had already been there and had lost their lives. So there was nobody any. Many princes had already princes. So there was nobody anymore who dared to try. This is why the princess had the proclamation issued again. The servant thought about it and decided to declare himself as a suitor. So he was led out to sea, where a ring was thrown in. He was to fetch it, and if he came out of the water without it, he'd be pushed back into the sea, and would have to die in the water. He was to fetch it, and if he came out of the water without it, as he was standing on the shore, the 3 fish that had taken from the reeds and thrown into the water came swimming towards him. One of the fish held a shell in its mouth, and the ring was in the shell. The fish set it down on the beach at the feet of the young man, who was full of joy. The fish set it down on the beach at the feet of the young man, who was full of joy. Freshwater fish finding jewels in saltwater. Yeah. That's how fish work. Jewels in saltwater. So he brought the ring to the king and demanded the princess. However, when the princess heard that he wasn't a prince, she refused to accept him, because bitches be bitches. Instead, she scattered 10 sacks of millet seed in the grass. He was to pick all of them up before sunrise the next day, and every single grain had to be gathered or else he'd lose his life. Because the princess is clearly a bitch who does not want to get married. Guys, no means no. No means no. If a princess doesn't want to get married, it's better to just not try, because not everyone's going to have animals helping them. It's better to just not try, because not everyone's going to have animals helping them. Okay. All at once, the ant king came with all of his ants, whom the young man had protected, and picked up the millet seeds during the night and poured them back into the sacks. Ants would be efficient at that, admittedly. By morning, they had finished the task. When the princess saw all the sacks had been filled, she was astonished, and the young man was brought before her. Since he was handsome, and she liked him, but demanded that he perform a third task. Dude, she's a bitch. Just leave. I was like, you're cute and all, and you've already done these other 2 things. I'd like to see if you can do this other thing too, because what are you needing him to do? Find your clitoris? Oh, kids, ignore that. Strike that from memory. You don't need to hear about that. Other ravens might know where that is. Okay. Oh, well, she's really a bitch after the third one. Again, so I'll do it again. Since he was handsome, she liked him but demanded that he perform a third task. He was to fetch an apple from the tree of life.
She
Fuck.
liked him, but demanded they perform a third task. He was to fetch
As
water
he
for the
stood there and
child.
thought about how he might get it,
Fuck him, but
not,
demanded they perform a
one of the
third
ravens
task.
whom he had fed with his horse came
As
and
he
brought
stood
the
there
apple
and
in
thought
its
about
beak.
how he might get it,
This is how he became the princess's husband.
one of the
And
ravens
when her
whom he
father
had
died, he
fed with his
became
horse
king of
came
the
and brought
entire
the apple in
country.
its beak. This is how he became the princess's husband. And when her father died, he became king of the entire country.
This is clearly Be Kind to Animals Week.
This is clearly Be Kind to Animals Week.
Okay, I will give you 2 more stories.
Okay, I will give you
2 more. That's it. Your parents aren't paying me enough.
2 more stories.
Your parents aren't paying me at all.
2 more. That's it. Your parents aren't paying me enough.
Okay, so they're helping me pay rent. Shut up.
Your parents aren't paying me
Close
enough.
your eyes. The journey of the straw, the coal, and the bean.
Pay rent. Shut up.
Beans!
Close your eyes.
There's a bean in the story.
The journey of
You
the
should like
straw,
this.
the
It's got a bean
coal, and
story.
the bean. Beans. There's a bean in the story.
I don't think I've ever heard this one, so
I don't think I've ever heard this one. So
actually, before I start this one, 3 cups of Hedger breaks. I gotta take a break real quick. I'll be back.
3 cups of Hedger breaks. I gotta take a break real quick. I'll be back.
Damn. Oh, we're halfway there. Oh, lean on that friend, take my hand. I'll make your will swear. Friend, lean on a friend. Damn, you cubs are so awake. I hope you fall asleep when I was gone. That was me. Damn, you cubs are so awake. I hope you fall asleep when I was gone. That was me. Rockabye, go to sleep, you silly cute cubs. Rockabye, go to sleep, you silly cute cubs. 'Cause when you get to go to sleep, I can stay and watch your pay-per-view. 'Cause when you get to go to sleep, I can stay and watch your pay-per-view. cooks just do not get tired easily anymore, do you? And I think telling you the most boring stories I can think of would be enough. No, I'm not eating cookies. I'm eating crackers with cheese. Okay, since you cubs are still up, I will go ahead and read you some more stories. Just 2 more, though. Oh. If I'm sober before you kids go to sleep, I don't know what's gonna go on. No, I don't know when your parents are gonna come back. I just hope you kids are asleep before then, because your mother gets really cranky if you're not in bed in time. So, please try to go to sleep. Okay. Where was I? The journey of the straw, the coal, and the bean. Because beans. Right. I remember beans. Hmm. A straw, a coal, and a bean came together, and they wanted to take a great journey. They had already gone through many countries, and when they reached a brook without a bridge, and couldn't cross. Finally, the straw came up with a good idea. He laid himself across the brook, and the other 2 were to cross over him. First coal, then bean. Coal took wide steps and slowly crossed the straw, while the bean toddled after. When the coal got to the middle of the straw, however, the straw began to burn and burned through and through. The coal fell fizzling into the water and died. The straw broke into 2 pieces and floated away. The bean, who was somewhat behind, slipped and fell into the water, but managed to help herself a little by swimming. Finally, the bean had to drink so much water that she burst and was driven to shore in this condition. However, a tailor was sitting there. He was resting while taking his hike in the woods, Since he had a needle and thread in his sack, he sewed Bean together.
And the tailor was sitting there.
Ever since this time, the Bean has had a seam.
Sack in the woods. Since he had a needle and thread in his sack, he sewed Bean together. Ever since this time, the Bean has had a seam.
I am not drunk enough for that kind of story.
I am not drunk enough for that kind of story.
Who tells that kind of story? And there's this something on it. According to another story, Bean was the first to make the way across the straw. She reached the other side safely and looked back at the coal on the other side, and how he was crossing. In the middle of the way, the coal burned through the straw and fell into the water and fizzled. When Bean saw this, she laughed so hard that she burst.
In the middle of the way, the coal burned through the straw and fell into the water and fizzled. When Bean saw this, she laughed so hard that she burst.
There are so many things about that story that are weird. There are so many things about that story that are weird. I mean, Cubs never mentioned the coal was on fire in the first place. Cubs never mentioned the coal was on fire in the first place. And beans either know how to swim or have a sense of humor. A sick sense of humor because she was laughing at the fact her friend died. Beans either know how to swim or have a sense of humor. A sick sense of humor because she was laughing at the fact her friend died. The hell? I don't even want to count that against your story count. I don't even want to count that against your story count. And that was just, what the hell? That story in itself was ridiculous. And that was just, what the hell? And that wouldn't even count as a story. That's like more of a fable. That wouldn't even count as a story. That's like more of a fable. Anyway, if you guys listen to me, which never any guarantee that you guys listen to me at all. If you guys listen to me, which I am going to be on Striker's stream Sunday at 11:55 EST, so that's like 10:55 for me. Because it's 11:55 EST, so 10:55 CST. She's doing anniversary fundraiser, that kind of thing. There's a tweet about it. She's doing anniversary fundraiser, that kind of thing. So feel free to drop by and listen to your drunk Uncle Randall ramble for a couple minutes, because I've got like a 5-minute interview.
Ramble.
So
Ramble for a couple minutes.
stop by, check out Sly.
So I've got like
She's
a
awesome.
5-minute interview.
The commander's been doing this a lot longer than I have.
Stop by, check out Sly. She's awesome.
Ugh.
The commander's been doing this a lot longer than I have.
Really, just she's cool. You need to listen to her anyway.
She's cool. You need to listen to her anyway.
Damn, these crackers are noisy. Now I'm gonna read like at least one more actual story. It's not a 3-paragraph fable about inanimate objects killing each other.
Actual story. It's not a paragraph fable about inanimate objects killing each other.
Okay. This next story is at least a couple of pages long, so I'll go and read it. You might know this one. At least you've heard some kind of variation of it.
Pages long, so I'll go and read it. You might know this one. At least you've heard some kind of variation of it.
The Fisherman and His Wife.
The Fisherman and His Wife.
Once upon a time, there was a fisherman who lived with his wife in a pith-pot near the sea.
Once upon a time,
Piss
there was
pot.
a fisherman who lived with his wife in a pith-pot near the sea.
How do you live in a piss pot?
Piss pot. How do you live in a piss pot?
Anyway, not much room in a piss pot. Every day the fisherman went out to fish, and all he did was fish and fish. One day, while he was sitting with his line and gazing into the deep, clear water, and all he did was sit and sit, suddenly his line sank deep into the bottom, and when he pulled it up, there was a large flounder on the line. And the flounder said to him, "Listen here, fisherman. I beg you to let me live. I'm not a real flounder, but an enchanted prince. So what good would it do you to kill me? I certainly wouldn't taste very good. Put me back into the water and let me go."
So what good would it do you to kill me? I certainly wouldn't taste very good. Put me back into the water and let me go.
Honestly, how do you know a talking flounder wouldn't taste good? How do you know a prince wouldn't taste good? Until you've eaten a prince, you can't really make that kind of judgment, now can you?
Until you've eaten a prince, you can't really make that kind of judgment, now can you?
Hold on, said the man. You don't have to waste your words on me. I would have thrown the talking fish back into the water anyway, because I would have been thinking I was absolutely drunk or stoned. Why is there a talking fish on my line?
Talking fish back into the water anyway. Because I would have been thinking I was absolutely drunk or stoned. Why is there a talking fish on my line?
Hmm. He then put the fish back in the water, into the clear water, and the flounder swam to the bottom, leaving behind a streak of blood. Ooh, bloody
He
fish.
then put the fish back in the water, into the clear water, and the flounder swam to the bottom, leaving behind a streak of blood. Ooh, bloody fish.
And then eventually floated back to the surface because he was dead. Cubs, it's usually just
Eventually
you
floated
don't
back to the surface, but
throw
this
back
one's
a
dead.
bloody fish. I mean, that's
Well,
just not
it's usually
kosher.
just you don't
That
throw back
doesn't
a
sound bad.
bloody fish. I mean,
If you ever go fishing with me and the fish that you just pulled out of the nice clear water
that doesn't sound bad.
at the bottom of
If you ever go fishing with
the
me and
sea, apparently,
the fish that you just
you
pulled out
don't
of the nice
throw
clear water
blooded fish back in the water
at the
because,
bottom of
they'll get eaten.
the sea, apparently, you don't throw blooded fish back in the water because they'll get eaten.
Hmm. This is another one of those nagging wife stories, in case you haven't already heard it before. I mean story, not nagging wife. You cubs better not have nagging wives. Or become a nagging wife.
I mean, story,
Okay.
not nagging wife.
Next ant.
You cubs better not have nagging wives, or become a nagging wife.
Then the fisherman stood up and returned to the piss pot to be with his wife, and told her that he had caught a flounder, but since it had been an enchanted prince, he let him
Then the
go.
fisherman stood up and returned to the piss pot to be with his wife,
Didn't you wish for
and told her that
anything?
he had caught a
Asked the
flounder, but
wife.
since it had been an enchanted
No,
prince,
said the
he
husband.
let him
What
go.
should I have wished for? Ah, said the
Didn't
wife.
you wish for
Don't you
anything?
think it's an awful that you've got?
No.
Don't you think it's awful
What
that
should
we've
I have
got to
wished
live
for?
in this piss pot?
Ah, said the wife.
It stinks
Don't
and
you
it's
think it's an awful that
disgusting.
you've got? Don't you
You
think
should
it's
have wished
awful
for
that
a
we've
little
got to
hut
live
and
in this
gone back.
piss pot?
Go back and call him.
It stinks and
Tell
it's
him we want a little
disgusting.
hut, and I'm sure he'll give us one.
You should have wished for a little hut and gone back. Go back and call him. Tell him we want a little hut, and I'm sure he'll give us one.
So they live in an actual piss pot? Um, how does that work? What?
They live in an actual piss pot?
That's gonna be a real big, a really big piss pot. Are they like living in an
How does
outhouse
that?
or what?
What?
If they know how to make that, they should be able
That's
to
gonna be a
make a house.
really big piss pot. Are they like living in an outhouse or what? If they know how to make that, they should be able to make a house.
Hmm. Yeah, this is definitely taking jabs at wives. The husband didn't think that this was the right thing to do, but he went back to the sea anyway, and when he arrived, the sea was green and yellow.
The husband didn't think that this was the right
And he
thing to
stood on the
do,
shore and said,
but he went back to the sea anyway.
Flounder, flounder
And when
in
he
the
arrived,
sea,
the
if
sea
you're a
was
man,
green
then
and yellow.
speak to me. Though I don't
And he
agree
stood on
with
the
my
shore and
wife's
said,
requests, I've come to
Flounder,
ask it
flounder in the
nonetheless.
sea. If you're a man, then speak to me. Though I don't agree with my wife's requests, I've come to ask it nonetheless.
The flounder came swimming up to him and said, Well, what does she want? Oh, said the man, my
The
wife,
flounder came swimming up to
Isabel,
him and said,
thinks I should have
What
wished
does
for
she want?
something because I caught you. Since she doesn't want to live in a
Oh,
piss pot,
said the man. My
she'd like to
wife,
live in a hut.
Isabel, thinks I should have wished for something because I caught you. Since she doesn't want to live in a piss pot, she'd like to live in a hut.
And calling out Isabel like that. What did Isabel ever do to you? But, well, she married you, I guess, and you live in a piss
Calling
pot,
out
so
Isabel like that.
I'm sure she thinks she
What did
deserves better,
Isabel
but
ever do to you? Well,
she got what
I'm sure
she
she married you.
she knew what she was getting into when she married you, damn it.
I'm sure she thinks she deserves better, but
Just go home, said the
She knew
Flounder.
what she was getting into when she married you.
Flanders. Stupid, sexy Flanders. Said the Flounder. She's already got
Go
it.
home, said the Flounder. Flanders. Stupid, sexy Flanders.
The fisherman went home, and his
She's
wife was
already
standing
got
in
it.
the doorway of a hut, and said to him, "Come inside, husband. Look, now isn't this much better?"
The fisherman went home, and his wife was standing in the doorway of a hut,
There was a
and said to
stove
him,
and a parlor,
"Come
also a
inside,
kitchen.
husband. Look, now
Behind
isn't
the
this
hut was a
much
little yard
better?"
and garden with all kinds of vegetables and chickens and ducks.
There was a stove and a parlor, also a kitchen. Behind the hut was a little yard and garden with all kinds of vegetables and chickens and ducks.
I'm sure those chickens and ducks were eating the vegetables, but that's just what chickens and ducks do. "Oh," said the fisherman, "now we can enjoy ourselves."
Chickens and ducks were eating the vegetables.
"Yes," said the wife, "we're going to enjoy it."
"Oh," said the fisherman, "now we can enjoy
Everything
ourselves."
went well for a week or two. And then the wife
"Yes,"
said,
said the wife, "we're
"Listen,
going to enjoy
husband,
it."
the hut is much too cramped, and the yard and garden are
Everything
too
went
little.
well for a week or
I want
two.
a large
Then the wife
stone
said,
castle.
"Listen,
Go back to the
husband,
flounder and tell
the
him to
hut
give
is
us a
much too
castle."
cramped, and the yard and garden are too little. I want a large stone castle. Go back to the flounder and tell him to give us a castle."
"Ah, wife," said the husband, "the flounder has just given us a hut, and I don't want to go back again so soon. The flounder might be unwilling to do anything,
"Ah, wife," said
because
the husband,
flounders are
"the flounder has
flounders
just
like that."
given us a hut, and I don't want to go back
"What
again
do
so
you
soon. The
mean?"
flounder
said the
might be
wife.
unwilling to do
"He can
anything."
easily do it, and he'll be glad to do it.
The flounder
Just
said,
go back to him,
"What do you
bitch."
mean?" said the wife. "He can easily do it, and
So
he'll
the
be
fisherman
glad to
left,
do
and
it.
his heart grew
Just go
heavy.
back to him."
When he got to the sea, the water was purple, dark blue, gray,
So the
and
fisherman
dense,
left,
but
and
still
his heart
calm.
grew heavy. When he
Then
got
he
to the
stood
sea,
there
the water
and
was
said,
purple, dark, blue, gray,
"Flounder, flounder in the
and
sea,
dense,
if you're a
but still
man, then
calm.
speak to me. Though
Then he
I
stood
don't
there
agree
and
with my
said,
wife's requests, I've come to
"Flounder,
ask it
flounder in the sea,
nonetheless."
if you're a man, then speak to me.
"What now?
Though I
What does
don't
she
agree with
want?"
my
the flounder asked.
wife's requests, I've come to
"Oh,"
ask it
said the fisherman,
nonetheless."
somewhat distressed, "my
"What
wife wants to live in
now?
a large
What does she
stone
want?"
castle."
the flounder asked. "Oh,"
"Go home.
said
She's
the wife,
standing in front of the door,"
"my
the flounder
wife wants
said.
to live in a large stone castle."
The fisherman went home, and his wife
"Go
was standing
home.
in
She's
front of
standing
a
in front of the
large
door,"
palace,
the flounder said.
a fancy palace, or a fancy
The
phouse.
fisherman went home,
One
and
or
his
the
wife was
other.
standing in front of a large palace,
"So, husband," he said, "isn't this beautiful?"
fancy palace.
He went inside with her, and there were servants, and the walls were all
"So, husband,"
bright.
he said,
The
"isn't this
chairs and tables were
beautiful?"
made of gold. Behind the
"Oh," said
palace
the
was a
husband,
huge
and there
yard
were
and
servants,
a
and the
park
walls
half a
were
mile
all
long,
bright.
with deer
The
and
chairs and tables were made
does
of
and
gold.
rabbits, because
Behind the
does
palace
aren't
was a huge
deer
yard,
apparently,
a
and
park half a
rabbits
mile
are
long,
rabbits.
with deer and
There was also a
does
stable
and
for cows and
rabbits.
horses.
Horse or
"Oh," said the husband,
and rabbits.
"let's live in this beautiful castle and be content."
There was also a stable for cows and horses.
"We'll have to think about
"Oh,"
that,"
said
said
the
the
husband,
wife, "and
"let's
sleep
live in
on
this
it."
beautiful castle and be content."
Then they went to bed. "Bow, chicka, bow,
"We'll
wow.
have to think about that," said the wife, and
Bow,
sleep on
chicka,
it.
chicka, bow, wow. Bow, chicka, chicka,
Then
bow."
they went to bed.
Okay.
Bow, chicka,
The
bow,
next
wow.
morning, the wife woke up.
Bow, chicka, chicka, bow.
Damn. It was just daybreak,
The next morning, the wife woke up.
she poked her husband in the side with her elbow and said, "Husband,
It was
get up.
just daybreak,
We must be a king and rule this entire country."
and she poked her husband in the
"Ay,
side with her
ya,
elbow and said,
wife,"
"Husband, get up.
said the husband.
We must be
"Why
a
should we
king
be
and rule
king?
this
I don't
entire
want to be
country."
king." "Well," said the wife,
"Ay,
"then
ya,
I'll be king."
wife," said the husband.
Sounds
"Why
like a
should we be
pretentious
king? I don't want
bitch
to be
already.
king." "Well," said the wife, "then I'll be king." Sounds like a pretentious bitch already.
Why can people never be satisfied with what they have? This Jack would have been nice. Shaq was cool.
Why can people never be
It's like,
Number 9. Shack was cool.
I don't really want a house. I'd be cool with a small apartment. Just me and my floater balls. Coming over and reading you kids stories, and then going home at the end of the night.
Want a house? I'd be cool with a small apartment. Just me and my floater balls.
But no, I come over here and read you stories,
And then going home.
and wait for your parents to come back from the parties they're having. And hopefully you guys are asleep by then.
And wait for your parents to come back from the
Alright,
parties.
back to the story. Oh, wife, said the husband,
You're asleep by then.
where can you be king? The flounder doesn't want to make you a king.
Oh, wife.
Husband, said the wife,
Where can you
go
be
straight to
king?
him and tell him I
The flounder
must
doesn't
be
want to make you
king.
a king.
Ay,
Husband, said the wife,
The
go straight to
fisherman
him and tell
went,
him I
but was
must
very
be a
distressed
king.
that his wife wanted to be king. Because it would involve a sextant, apparently. And the fisherman does not want to be
went,
pegged for that
but
kind
was
of guy.
very distressed that his wife wanted to be king.
Or at least he doesn't want to be queen.
Sextant, apparently.
So,
And the fisherman does not want to be pegged.
just let the man fish in peace, man. Okay.
Or at least he doesn't want to be queen.
When he got to the sea, it was completely
Just let the
gray and
man
black.
fish in peace, man.
The water was fermenting from below.
When he
Fermented
got to
water.
the sea, it was completely gray.
I'm not the only one drunk.
The water
And the
was
flounder is pickled.
fermenting from below.
Mm.
Fermented water.
The fisherman stood there and said, repeat with me, class. After that, oh.
The fisherman stood there and said, repeat with me, class. After that,
Right. Flounder, flounder in the sea, if you're a man, then speak with me. Although I don't agree with my wife's request, I've come to ask it nonetheless,
if you're a man, then speak with me.
quoth the
Though
flounder.
I don't agree
What
with
the
my
fuck does
wife's
she
request,
want?
I've come to ask it
No,
nonetheless.
she really just says, well, what does she want? He was expecting it.
What the fuck does she want?
Oh,
No,
said the man.
well, what does
She wants to be king.
What the fuck does she want? Oh, said the man.
Go back home, said the flounder. She's already king. Then the man went home, and as he approached the palace, he saw that there were many soldiers, drums, and trumpets. His wife was sitting on a high throne of gold and diamonds, and she wore a large golden crown.
Drums and trumpets.
2 rows of ladies in waiting were standing on either side of her. Each had the head shorter than the last. What the hell?
Ladies in waiting were standing on either side of her. Each had the head shorter than the last.
She's surrounded by pygmy women.
Hell.
That is fucking awesome. Let me get a shout out for all the shorties. Sorry, that just I hate doing that kind of thing.
Fucking awesome.
There's absolutely nothing wrong with a short woman.
Shout out for all the shorties.
It's like she's got
There's absolutely nothing wrong with a short woman.
2 rows of ladies in waiting standing on either side of her, each one a head shorter than the next.
Ladies in waiting standing on either side of her.
That could not be very long lines, because otherwise, after the first
Head shorter than the next.
3 ladies in waiting, they'd be like
That could not be very long lines.
child heights, if not smaller.
3 ladies in waiting, they'd be like child heights, if not smaller.
Um, she's got pygmies and waiting, I guess. Oh, said the fisherman. Now you're king, aren't you? Yes, said the wife. I am king.
Oh, said the fisherman. Now you're
After
king,
he
aren't you?
gazed at her for some time, he said,
Yes,
"Oh,
said the
wife,
fisherman.
it's wonderful that you're king. Now let's not wish for anything more."
After he gazed at her for some time, he said, "Oh, wife, it's wonderful that you're king.
No, husband,
Now let's not
the
wish
wife
for
said,
anything more."
and as she became very restless. "I have too much time on my hands, and I can't stand it
No,
anymore.
husband, the wife
I'm
said,
king, but now I want to be an
as she became
emperor.
very restless. "I have
I
too
am
much
the
time on my hands,
Senate."
and I can't stand it anymore. I'm king, but now I want to be an emperor."
"Oh, wife, why do you want to be an emperor?" "Husband, go to the flounder. I want to be emperor."
"Oh, wife, why do you want to be an
"Oh,
emperor?"
wife, he can't make you emperor.
"Husband,
I don't want to tell that to the flounder."
I want to be emperor."
"I'm king," she said, "and
"Oh,
you're
wife, he
just
can't
my
make you
husband.
emperor.
Go there
I
at
don't want to tell
once."
that to the flounder." "I'm king," she said, "and you're just my husband. Go there at once." "I'm king," she said, "and you're just my husband. Go there at once."
The fisherman went away, but as he was walking, he thought, "This won't turn out well at all. It's outrageous for her to be emperor. The flounder is going
The
to become
fisherman went
sick
away,
and
but as he
tired
was
of
walking,
this
he
in the
thought,
end."
"This won't turn out well at
When he
all.
got to the
It's
sea, it
outrageous for
was
her to
all
be
black
emperor.
and dense,
The
and a
flounder is going to
strong
become
wind whipped
sick
through the
and tired
surface,
of this in the
made the
sea."
water curdle.
When he got to the
Then
sea,
the
it
fisherman
was all
stepped
black and
forward and
dense,
said,
and a strong wind whipped
"All
through the
together now.
surface.
Flounder, flounder in the sea, if you're a
Then the
man, then
fisherman
speak
stepped
to
forward
me.
and said,
Though I don't agree with my
"All together
wife's
now.
request,
Flounder,
I've come to
flounder
ask it
in the sea. If
nonetheless."
you're a man, then speak to me.
"Well,
Though I
what does
don't
she
agree with my
want?"
wife's request, I've come to ask
asked the
it
flounder.
nonetheless."
"Oh,
"Well,
flounder,"
what
he
does
said,
she want?"
"my wife wants to be
asked the
emperor."
flounder. "Oh,
"Go
flounder,"
back
said the
home," said
fisherman.
the flounder. "She's already
"My
emperor."
wife wants to be emperor."
If you ever
"Go
wondered
back
about it,
home," said the
maybe the
flounder.
fisherman just
"She's
needs to
already
treat her
emperor."
better. I mean, she's a fishwife, but still. If you ever wondered about it, maybe the fisherman just needs to treat her better. I mean, she's a fishwife, but still. Hmm. Then the man went home, and when he arrived, he saw his wife sitting on a very high throne made of a single piece of gold. She was wearing a large crown 3 yards
And when he
tall and
arrived, he
covered
saw
with
his wife
diamonds
sitting
and
on a
garnets.
very high throne made of a single piece of
And just a
gold.
tall freaking crown.
She was wearing a large
She
crown
was
three
flanked on
yards
either
tall
side by
and
2 rows
covered with
of
diamonds and
bodyguards,
garnets.
each man shorter than the next, beginning with a
Tall, freaking
tremendous
crown.
giant 2 miles tall,
She was flanked on either side by two
and
rows of
ending with the
bodyguards,
tiniest
each
dwarf
man
who
shorter than
was
the
no
next,
bigger than
beginning
my
with a
pinky.
tremendous giant 2 miles tall, and ending with the tiniest dwarf who was no bigger than my pinky.
That is a hell of a scale reference. Hmm. There were also many princes and dukes
That is
standing
a hell
before
of a
her,
scale
and
reference.
her husband stepped up and said, "Wife, you're now emperor, aren't you?"
There were also many princes
"Yes,"
and dukes
she
standing
said,
before her, and
"I'm
her husband
emperor."
stepped up and said, "Wife,
"Oh,"
you're
said
now
the fisherman,
emperor, aren't you?"
as he gazed at her for some time.
"Yes," she said,
"It's wonderful that you're
"I'm
emperor."
emperor." "Oh,"
"Husband," she replied,
as he gazed at her for some time,
"why are you standing there
"it's
like that?
wonderful that you're emperor."
I'm now emperor, but I also now want to be pope."
"Husband," she replied, "why are you standing there like
Oh,
that?
maybe a cardinal.
I'm
Nope,
now
she wants
emperor,
to be pope.
but I also now want to be pope."
"No, wife," said the fisherman.
"Oh, maybe a
"The
cardinal.
flounder
Nope,
can't make you
she wants to
pope.
be pope."
It won't turn out well.
No, wife, said the fisherman.
Stop talking nonsense, husband, said the wife. If he can make me emperor, he can also make me pope. Go there at once.
Stop talking nonsense, husband, said the wife. If
What
he
a
can make
bitch.
me emperor, he can also make me pope. Go there at once.
So the fisherman went out, but felt rather queasy. He was trembling, and his knees began to wobble. Wobbly knees.
So the fisherman went out.
A strong wind swept across the land. The water
He was
rose up in
trembling, and his knees
waves, and
began
the
to
waves
wobble.
splashed against the
Wobbly
shore.
knees.
Ships were in
A strong wind
distress as they
swept
were
across the
tossed up
land.
and
The
down by the
water rose up in
waves.
waves, and the
Though
waves
there was
splashed
still a
against
little
the
blue
shore.
in the middle of the sky, the horizon was
Ships were in
completely red,
distress as they were tossed
as
up
if
and
a
down
heavy
by the
sun,
waves. Though
as
there
if
was
a
still
heavy
a little
thunderstorm
blue
were
in the
coming.
middle of the sky, the horizon was completely
He
red.
stepped forward
As if
and said,
a heavy thunderstorm were
Flounder,
coming.
flounder in the sea, if you're a man,
He stepped
then
forward
speak to me.
and said,
Though I don't agree with my wife's request, I've
Flounder,
come to ask
flounder in the
you
sea, if you're a
nonetheless.
man,
What the bitch
then
want?
speak to me. Though I don't agree with my wife's request, I've come to
Well, what
ask
does she
you
want? asked
nonetheless.
the flounder.
What the bitch
Oh,
want?
said the man, she wants to be pope.
Well, what does she want? Asked the flounder. Oh, said the
Go
man.
back home, said the flounder. She's already pope.
She wants to be pope.
No one expected this
Go back
popish
home, said the
inquisition.
flounder. She's already pope.
Then the man went home, and when he arrived, his wife was sitting on a throne 2 miles high
Popish inquisition.
and wearing 3 large
Then the man
golden
went home,
crowns on her
and when
head.
he arrived, his wife was sitting on a throne
Numerous
2 miles
bishops and priests
high
were standing round her, and there were 2 rows of
three
candles on either
large
side of her. The
golden
biggest candle
crowns on
was
her
as
head.
thick and as large as my dick, as the
Numerous
highest
bishops and
tower,
priests were standing around her,
and the
and there were two
tiniest
rows
was
of
a church
candles on
candle.
either side of her. The biggest candle was as thick and as large as my dick, as the highest tower, and the tiniest was a church candle.
Wife, said the man as he took a good look at her, are you the Pope? Yes, she said,
Wife,
I'm
said the
Pope.
man as he took a good look at her,
Oh, wife, he
are
said,
you
isn't it wonderful
the
that you're
Pope?
the Pope? You must
Yes,
be
she said,
satisfied.
I am the
Now that
Pope.
you're Pope, you can't become anything greater.
Oh, wife, he said, isn't it wonderful that you're the Pope?
I'll think about it, said the
You must be
wife.
satisfied. Now that you're Pope, you can't become anything greater. I'll think about it.
Greed. Greed bad. Greed. Greed bad. Hmm. Then they both went to bed, but she wasn't satisfied. Because
Then
he
they
was a little
both
boy.
went to bed, but she
Okay.
wasn't satisfied.
And her ambition prevented her from sleeping. She kept thinking of ways she might become greater than she was. When the sun began to rise,
Her
she sat at
ambition
the window
prevented
and
her
thought,
from sleeping.
Aha,
She kept
I
thinking of ways
also
she
could
might
make the
become
sun
greater than
rise.
she was. When the sun began
Then
to
she
rise,
became
she
quite
sat at the
grim
window
and
and
poked her
thought,
husband and said,
Aha, I also could
Husband,
make
go
the
to the
sun
founder.
rise.
I want to be like God.
Then she became quite grim and poked her husband and said, Husband, go to the founder. I want to be like God.
Ugh. I really don't want to continue this one. She deserves to live in a piss pot.
I really don't want to continue this one. She deserves to live in a piss pot.
What the hell was that? The husband was still half asleep, but was so shocked by what she said that he fell out of the bed.
The husband was still half asleep.
Oh, wife, he said, be content and remain pope. No, the wife said, I won't have any peace of mind, and I won't be able to bear it until I can make the sun and moon rise. I want to be like
I
God.
won't have any peace of mind, and I won't be able to bear it until I can make the sun and moon rise.
Hey, the husband said. No, he said, oh, wife, the husband said, the flounder can't do that. He can make you emperor and pope, but he can't make you God.
The husband said, the flounder can't.
Husband, she said, and looked ghastly. I want to be like God. I want you to go to the flounder at once.
She said, and looked ghastly.
I want to be like God. I want you to go to the flounder at once. Now his limbs began to tremble, and he was filled with fear. Outside a great storm was raging, so much that all the trees in the mountains were shaking. The sky was pitch black, and there was thunder and lightning. Black waves rose up out of the sea as high as mountains, and they all came in crests of white foam on top. And the fisherman said, Flounder, flounder in the sea, if you're a man, then speak to me. Though I don't agree with my wife's request, I've come to ask you nonetheless.
Though I don't agree with my wife's request.
What does she want? The flounder asked. Oh, he said.
What does she want?
She wants to be like God.
The flounder asked. Oh, he said. She wants to be like God.
Go back home. She's sitting in your piss pot again. And that's where they are all sitting this very day.
She's sitting in your piss pot again. And that's where they are all sitting this very day.
You know, Cubs, I think I may leave it at that. I don't want to read the next story quite yet. It's over 4 pages. And, quite frankly, you guys might not be asleep yet, but I'm dozing off.
You guys might not be asleep yet, but I'm dozing off.
I will say that was a good bottle of wine, though. With the Skittles and crackers. And... Why am I bleeding? What the hell? You didn't hear that. You did not hear that. You don't need to know about that. Oh! Cubs.
You did not hear that.
How about this? I'll give you each $10 if you just go to sleep already. How about this? I'll give you each $10 if you just go to sleep. Oh, you'll agree to that. You won't fall asleep during this. Oh, I'll tell the stories too excitingly. Well, damn. You won't fall asleep during this. Oh, I'll tell the stories too excitingly. Well, damn. Go to sleep, Cubs. Just without argument. Go to sleep, please. Go to sleep, Cubs. Without argument. Go to sleep, please. Good night, Cubs. Sweet dreams. Good night. Yeah. Sweet dreams. Anyway, that was. I'm gonna have to go back and look to see which one it is so I can annotate which stories I read. That was. It was Hansel Gretel through Fisherman and His Wife. Yeah. Oh, but notes in this VOD, I guess. I suppose. We're craving for cereal now. Cubs got 2.5 hours of stories, so. I know what I want to read. Cubs got 2.5 hours of stories, so. I know what I want to read. Lord, anyone not playing Elden Rings? Or whatever the hell game it is? Yeah. So Snuffy's just chatting. Anyone else that might have interest in? Everyone and their fucking dog is playing Elden Ring. The real question is, why is their dog fucking? Oh. You know what? Check something quick. I just throw you on a sweet tea and see if he can put you to sleep. Yeah. Oh, touch the sweet tea. Not that there's anyone to toss, but okay. Yeah. Oh, touch the sweet tea. Sweet tea is doing what? Sweet tea. Oh, of course he's playing Elden Ring. Screw it. Oh, of course he's playing Elden Ring. I don't have a red message. I'll figure one out eventually. I don't have a red message. I'll figure one out eventually. Sweet tea. Okay. Yep. Anyway, Cubs. Yeah. Have a good night. Anyway, Cubs. Be good. As good as you ever are, anyway. So. Yeah. Good night, pups.